students. And so in order to write the story, you need to give them contacts of people like who either community leaders or other elected officials, somebody that would make a good interview along with what will be done here today.
Okay.
Yeah, so this will be videoed.
Okay.
And this will be so and so students will be asking you questions.
Okay.
And so for the first 5 minutes, you can give an intro about yourself.
Okay.
And then we'll go into a roundtable of questions. Is that okay with
That
you?
sounds great. Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
We need your attention, please, and we can talk about that later.
Do I need to look into one of these cameras or
Yes,
just
address
look at you guys?
your audience.
Okay.
Yes. And please don't bang on them.
Okay. I'll make sure I don't.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Just start. Get 5 minutes on myself.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you all so much. I see a couple of familiar faces here. My name is Amber Goodwin. I am running for City Council in District 1. The election is in November of 2026, so this year. A little bit about me. I am an organizer, an advocate, and an attorney. I have spent the last 26 years now working in my local community. I'm originally from Midland, Texas, which is a very small town in West Texas. But I got here a little over 19 years ago. Over the last 19 years, I've worked here locally on a variety of different issues. I started working here on healthcare, and I worked for the Obama campaign in 2008, which is what brought me here. I was originally going to go to grad school, but then met Barack Obama in 2007 and kind of stayed working for him, including when he was at the White House. And I went back to grad school eventually at St. Edward's and spent a lot of time working on the implementation of things that were really important to me. And I think District 1 and East Austin, which is healthcare and access to affordable healthcare. And after that, I started working on gun violence prevention. So I spent the last 15 years as an advocate on gun violence prevention. And in the course of all of that working on gun violence prevention, I decided at the ripe young age of 38 to go to law school. And so I became an attorney at 42 and have spent the last 5 years in the district attorney's office where I work on a variety of issues. I've been a special victims unit prosecutor. So if you've ever watched Law and Order SVU, that's kind of what I did for a couple of years. And I've also served for the last 5 years as the liaison for the county for the city's Office of Violence Prevention and working to make sure that there's a cross-jurisdictional approach to how we think about public safety in our communities. And so that's what I've been doing. And I'm running for District 1 because I want to help my community, the community that has poured so much into me, my community. And I think that we deserve a really great leader and a fighter and somebody who really cares about this community.
Thank you. Some questions. Open it up.
Well, I'll initially start with I want to give you a little bit more time to explain your actual planned initiatives for District 1.
Mhm.
So if you could you list 2 to 3?
Yeah. One of them that's, I think, not just important to me, but from the conversations I've been having over the last year and a half with my neighbors is on public safety, but thinking about how we are actually going to put the public as a piece of public safety instead of just the people inside City Hall. I'm thinking about what I've heard from people across District 1 and obviously right here by HT, but also going all the way out to Whisper Valley, Shadow Bend, Harris Branch is a pretty large district in East Austin, but thinking about how we're actually engaging the community to have a say in what our public safety budget looks like, but also thinking about how the city actually can help build a public safety ecosystem. And by ecosystem, what parts of East Austin actually need to play a part. So it's not just the police department, it's also EMS, it's also other healthcare workers who work on parts of public safety, it's prosecutors, it's city attorneys. There's so many different people who are part of this ecosystem. So one of the things I want to do is build capacity for that. Right now, a lot of those initiatives, whether it's gun violence prevention or funding for EMS, it sits in totally different departments, and one's in public safety, one's in public health. There's different parts of education if we're talking about safe passages for people getting to and from our kids getting to and from school. And so I want to take an all of government approach to the entire issue of public safety and make sure that all the different departments understand what each one is doing. And so if there's a shooting, so I was just actually responding to, there was a shooting that was earlier yesterday, and we were doing a shooting response. And so people shouldn't just think it's a problem of that block over there, or that's those people over there, or that's that club over there. It doesn't impact me because it impacts all of us anytime someone is shot and killed. And so want to take an all of government approach there. And then I also, I think just in terms of how we are thinking about our housing, I do think there's a lot of different issues on housing, land use that I want to make sure that the community actually has a say in what's happening. For District 1, I think is District 1 because we're first. Black people built this city and built this community. And so I think we shouldn't have to play second fiddle to anybody or any other parts of this community when it comes to how we're making decisions about things like zoning and issues like that, and just making decisions after it's already been brought to the table. And so I think that part of what I want to do is make sure that there's community input, there's different community task forces that are actually institutionalized. And the word that I keep hearing is, and I think this is the right word as a lawyer, should know it more, but codified. And so like there's actually a way, doesn't depend on who the mayor is, it doesn't depend on who the city manager is, the community actually has a say for the rest of time and what happens on housing and things like that. I think are extremely important to me. And I think from what I've been hearing from my neighbors as well.
Okay. I want to piggyback off the two of those points that you had made. So when it comes down to District 1 being a vast area and one of the biggest districts to be ran for,
Mhm.
how do issues like public safety and affordable housing vary across the different locations here? Like we have rural areas and we have
Yeah.
this more urban area,
Mhm.
and then also those communities who are just very disadvantaged.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to say it's challenging, but I think there's great opportunities, especially because I work a lot with EMS and some other parts of the public safety ecosystem. And I want to say it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, they were able to pull together change in policy. So there's a very short response time, 54 seconds between whenever there's an incident, they get a call and there's somebody that's on the scene. So we saw, unfortunately, what happened at the mass shooting on 6th Street a couple of weeks ago. There were people from EMS, police, everybody who was immediately there, but they also called people like the community violence intervention, first responders, and frontline practitioners that I work that are from the community that are not, they are part of the public safety ecosystem, but they are not police, and they are on those front lines. So they have been a part of that. They help with resource allocation, and so I think it's challenging, but I think it's an opportunity for us to make sure that the entirety, doesn't matter if you live on MLK or 969, like whatever version of it you live on, you should have the same access to resources. And so I think we have to figure out who has access to resources now, what do those resources actually look like. But that is not something, we don't have enough time. So that is not something where I think that we need to have a task force that's going to take years to do that. West Side of Austin doesn't have to do that, right? Like they get immediate resources when something happens. And I think that we need to be getting that in East Austin as well. And so I think specifically on public safety, we need to figure out what resources already exist. And then we need to figure out what are the best practices. I've looked at other cities across the country that are similar in size, like a Washington, D.C., things like that. They have vast amounts of resources, but they have a different kind of political system. They have different people that don't have the political will that maybe we have here in Austin. And so I think we have a lot of opportunity to build capacity for what's already working, because we've already dreamed of, and there's so much work that's already happening in East Austin. We don't need other people to necessarily tell us what to do. We just need the resources, we need the opportunities and the ability to actually thrive. And so I think there's a lot of ways to do that, but it's going to take resources too.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Ruby.
Hi.
I'm a sophomore. You speak a lot on public safety, and East Austin isn't a monolith.
Yeah.
Like, we have a vast group of people from our but these things, public safety may mean different things to different people in this area. To the longtime residents, it may be protection from over policing.
Mhm.
To the newer residents, it may be more police presence. So when you say public safety, whose definition are you using?
I would say it's the community's definition of public safety, which I think it depends on who you're talking to. Normally, whenever I will do public speaking or different things like that, and people ask me about what do I think is public safety, I can give my definition of what I think public safety is, but I normally ask people to close your eyes and think about what does safety mean to you. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't mean surveillance. It doesn't mean your kids can't walk to school. It doesn't mean that you feel like you may be shot or something like that. It means like sidewalks. It means different things like that where people can actually feel safe. But I can just say, as someone, I've lived 4 different places. I've lived in 2 homes and 2 apartments and 2 different apartment complexes in District 1 over the last 19 years. And I can say that there was different levels of safety that I felt depending on where I lived. I lived way out in Whisper Valley, kind of in the, well, I guess you call it a little bit of the country. And that changed a little bit about how I felt. I knew my neighbors. I kind of knew what was happening. If there was a sheriff that was around, I knew it was the sheriff that lived down the street. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But that was very different than when I lived a little bit closer in. It wasn't because I felt unsafe. It was just because my surroundings were a little bit different. I always have felt safe. And so I think it just depends on what the community and where in the community we're talking about, what the definition of public safety is.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Amanda Fowler, communication major. And I just have like 2 questions. One, what is your biggest challenge when advocating for change and how do you stay motivated?
Um, the biggest challenge is there's a lot of work to be done. I think that I sometimes am delusionally optimistic about what we're able to do, but our ancestors have done much more than I will ever be able to do in this lifetime. And so I'm always going to think that our folks are worth it. But I've seen the impossible. Whenever I was in my 20s and I was working for Barack Obama, when I first started working for him, I was like, he's not going to get elected. There's no way, but I want to work for this Black man. And all 4 of my grandparents were still alive, and they said he's never going to become president. They lived through so much. My mom is older than Ruby Bridges, the little girl who walked down the stairs for schools being integrated. But I wanted to do it, and I didn't believe it was going to happen, but I wanted to be a part of it, and I was. It wasn't because of me that he got elected, but I've seen the impossible. And then on issues that are important, I think, to most people, like gun violence prevention. I used to work for Gabby Giffords, who was shot in the head, and her staffers were killed. And working on an issue like gun violence that had been so divided in this country. And then in 2022, we got the largest gun violence prevention federal policy passed in the last 40 years, which was specifically for local funding. So that local funding, $5 million of it went right here to East Austin, and it went to people who are working on gun violence prevention to keep all of us safe. So I didn't think 10 years ago it would be possible that members of Congress would actually get it together in a bipartisan manner to be able to pass legislation, but it happened. And so that'll always keep me motivated to do this. And I think one of the biggest challenges is I think as a Black woman, a lot of times we're underestimated, but that's not our issue because we've done many things, many bold and innovative things, and have led the way through history. So
Yeah, and then that you talked about the violence prevention programs. How are you making sure communities most affected by violence are actually shaping your campaign and not just representing it?
yeah, that's a great question. Sherwin, Patton, and a couple of people who are part of ATX Peace, which is not a political organization, it's a nonprofit. Those are the people that I've learned the most from locally here in Austin. I work with people all over the country on gun violence prevention. And let me just say this, these are people who are survivors of gun violence. So people, maybe they've been shot themselves or a loved one has died. And also people who have shot someone and potentially killed that person. And so we all work together. And part of what we have built here in Austin, especially I would say since 2018, 2019, when we had the gun violence task force, was that it was really important that there was a community voice. So the city of Austin has a it has the first Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the entire state of Texas. And I was the chair of that task force to get that implemented in 2020. And it was really important. You can see it in the bill language and the legislation and the budget that was passed, that it was community led, and that the funding was not going to go to fund a huge amount of staffers at City Hall to do a bunch of stuff and push a bunch of paper. They needed to be able to fund the work. And so the work has ranged. It's not just, are we funding this one group, ATX Peace? It's like, okay, we need to fund people that are working with the unhoused population. We need to fund people like when SNAP was cut last year, we made sure that there was a separate fundraising drive because we knew that all the organizational leaders were on SNAP. And a lot of people were, understandably to me, too proud to say, I am not going to be able to make ends meet while the federal government gets it together. And so things like that, those are the people that I listen to. They are the people that I'm accountable to. I also took an oath I was sworn an oath to be a lawyer, but I also swore an oath to to be an assistant district attorney. So I take that very seriously as well. And yeah, so that's the community part of it. When I got to the district attorney's office in 2021, we put together a 4-point plan on gun violence prevention, and it wasn't Jose Garza's 4-point plan. It was Jose Garza, but we had I think over 100 different organizations, local organizations, Texas organizations, and I'll send the link to you guys. But that all signed on to this to say we support this, we asked for this. It wasn't just a random lawyer who worked in the district attorney's office, and we've sat by that every single day that I do this work. And we have every year in June. June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. We have a gun violence summit. This will be our 5th year. And so it's something that's really important. It's all led by the community. If you see an elected official there, they're kind of in the back and they're not leading the conversation. They don't shape the agenda. It's done solely by the community. And that's how I do all the work that I do. The name of the organization I founded 10 years ago is called Community Justice Action Fund for a reason. It's really important that it wasn't just a bunch of people sitting in a room thinking about policy. Thank you.
Ryan Fontaine Mitchell,
Hi.
Senior Communications Major. If you were elected, can you outline your first 100 days and what will be your policies and procedures that you would be implementing?
Policy, sorry, can you just expand on the policies and procedures?
If, so for your campaign, if you have any policies or anything with public safety that you wanted to do within your first 100 days for District 1, what would be your first 100 days of procedures that you would lay out?
Yeah. Well, first off, that's also you guys have great questions. One of the policies is, and we worked on this on the federal level. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do it on the state level, but I've been able to do it on the city level and other cities is, I mentioned it, but taking it, mandating that every single city department takes an all-of-government approach on the issue of not just gun violence prevention, but community violence and our public safety infrastructure. Like I said, right now, if you talk to an assistant city manager that's over, schools or over something else, they're gonna have absolutely no idea who ATX Peace is. They're not gonna know who Hungry Hill is. They're not gonna know who any of these people are because they're not required to do that. And we saw that on the federal level too, where even, with Joe Biden, he said, I was on his transition team. He said, I want to put all this funding into a Department of Justice. And I worked with the community and they said, no, the funding needs to go across every single government. And so we had over 30 different agencies. So it wasn't just a carceral approach of just doing the Department of Justice, because a lot of times on the city level, even here, it's like, okay, there's violence, there's Black people, it's a public safety issue. When we know our kids and adults sometimes are using violence or have violence against them because they lack all the rest of the resources that the city is supposed to provide. And so I would get every single one of the department heads together within the very first week. The mayor can be there, listen to what's happening, but have community leaders from every single one of those department heads, from all those different departments, to come together and to talk about what is important to them. I've been doing mini town halls, and also, I don't call them meet and greets, but listening sessions with a lot of different community leaders. And it's not just about gun violence prevention. I have people who have talked to me very specifically. I don't have kids, but they're like, I need you to understand what these school closings mean to me. And I just got to Austin last year. I know I haven't been here a long time, but this is extremely important to me. And so making sure that, the city does not control the housing market, and it doesn't control healthcare and things like that. But there's a lot of things that the city can control, and the way that that residents feel, and also what access to opportunities they have. And so I think I specifically would get all those different department heads together. All the different assistant city managers would be required to sit around a room, listen to the community about the importance of the work. And I think if you talk to most community leaders, they probably never met some of these assistant city managers. I know I can't list all of them. Maybe somebody can, but talk to all of them. And then I think it would be a requirement within, it could be within the first 100 days, but for them to have a plan. And there's tons of cities across the country, tons of counties across the country who have required this, of how they're going to eradicate an issue like gun violence, how they're going to deal with public safety, how they're going to make sure that our kids are safe, and that it's mandatory that happens. And so, I know there are rules. I'm a lawyer. And so whenever I say mandatory, I know that there's lots of city attorneys that would say, well, we got to do this. We have to do this. This will go to a city council vote. But I think that it is something that can absolutely be done. And there's a lot of precedent or other locations that have done that. And then I also think that when elected, this person for District 1, there's going to be, it doesn't matter which way you slice it, there's going to be some challenges with the budget over the next couple of years. And I myself have run two multi-million-dollar organizations, nonprofits that I'm extremely proud of. They've gone ups and downs uh, with how there's been recessions and different things like that, but they've never lost money. They've always been multi-million-dollar organizations. That is nothing compared to a city's budget. So I'm not saying that I have dealt with as an advisor with different city budgets, but I'm ready to tackle the budget as well and make sure that East Austin and District 1 in particular is not having to take piecemeals and not just having to take the scraps of whatever it is, because it's going to be a really tough fight. Many of our social services and essential services, especially over the last 6 or 7 months, have been cut. And I believe that budgets are moral documents. And if we really want to make sure that our residents in District 1 feel that we want them to lead healthy and hopeful lives, then we need to be able to show it with funding as well. But I'm also realistic, right? We don't have endless amounts of money, but there are ways. Over the last year, April 22nd of last year, $810 million was cut from the federal government for public safety, and in Austin, there's probably around like $10 million that was cut overnight, and we haven't been able to recoup that. I'm suing the federal government right now over that, suing the Department of Justice, but that happened, and then Prop Q and TRE didn't happen, and a lot of those social services were the ones who had to get the axe. And then again in December, I was actually sitting with some community leaders in December, right before the holidays. There was another 10% across the board cut for Austin Public Health. And so when it comes to like the axes and the cuts and the cuts and the cuts and cuts, it's always social services. I'm so sorry. You told me not to do that, and I just did it like 3 times in a row. When it comes to the cuts, it's continued, and it's two things that are decisions, and people in District 1 are having to decide, not just between like, paying for lunch and maybe, health insurance. These are life and death decisions. And if we aren't able to have someone, but also just if District 1 needs to lead the way, because we are the ones who have been disproportionately impacted, but also we're the ones who built this city. And so we deserve to lead the way and not just be at the table. We can make the table ourselves for how we figure out the budgets for the city.
Thank you.
Of course.
My question was kind of stolen, but my name's Kiara, and I'm a senior here. I would probably veer into what so 2 questions. Outside of public safety, what is something different that you feel like you would add to your campaign just based off of, all of the issues that we do see here in the city of Austin, and to what, outside of that, what makes you different from everybody else who's campaigning against you?
Yeah. On another issue, economic opportunity, and I think that comes with creating jobs for jobs where people don't have to. And there's nothing wrong with these cities, but Pflugerville, where you can live, if you want to live in Austin and you want to live in District 1, you can live here and you can also work here. And so actually creating jobs, but like good paying jobs. There's a lot of jobs right now where I don't know anyone that can, most people that I know who not only live in District 1, but just live in East Austin can't afford to just have one job. And if they do have more than one job, maybe that neither one of the jobs has health insurance, or neither one of the jobs has any sort of benefit, so they can't even dream about retiring. And so I think there's a lot of different ways, and I've been a union organizer and been a union member for a very long time. I'm the only one in the race that is a union member and has been a union organizer, has worked for working class people in that capacity. And so I know what it's like to actually be in a union fight in a state like Texas. In 2006, I was working for the Justice for Janitors campaign. It's illegal in Texas for the most part to form a union, and we did it anyway, as part of why I have an arrest record, because I got arrested for protesting proudly, because the building owners and the people who were paying these janitors $5.15 an hour in Houston were paying them $7, $10, $20 in other places across the country. And so we fought that, but it wasn't just about money. It was also about making sure that there's dignity, respect on the job, and that they had access to full-time work. They had access to health insurance, things that they didn't have before. So I do think that there's a lot of ways to attract businesses, but not just ones that want to hire people outside of East Austin to work here, to actually be able to provide resources to small business incentives, making sure that there's actually ways for people to be entrepreneurs that are from this area, that are from Austin, for Black people in particular, making sure that there's resources for that. The city has been able to do that. Other cities like Baltimore, other cities like Sacramento have all been able to do that through the city and also through initiatives, public-private partnerships. There's a lot of those in different jurisdictions across the country. And so I think there's a lot of ways to be innovative in how we are actually funding the people who are from here to stay here, and be able to sustain that. And the last question was how.
What makes you different from everybody else who's campaigning?
I'm the best. No, I'm kidding. I think there's a lot of differences. I've been a organizer, which I think I've been an attorney, but I think that may be the last thing I would list, because I've been an organizer and I know how to organize people. I know what it looks like to build collective power. I also really understand policy on all levels of government. I've been able to lead, write, fight for as an advocate, but then also outside of that, policy that has been successful on all levels of government, but not just gun violence prevention, healthcare. I worked in the state legislature on environmental issues in 2009 here in Texas, and so as I was living here in East Austin, so I have a keen sense of what is important policy wise, but it'll always be led by and informed by the community. And so I think that I'm a known fighter on those issues. And so I think I have a different policy background, I guess I would say. And then I also have worked across different jurisdictions, which I think is extremely important right now. We've got to be able to find money and resources to be able to fund this work. We can't solely rely on government alone. I've worked with a lot of different philanthropic ventures across the country who are really interested in Austin, but not for some, I would say, nefarious reason, for actually good reasons, because they want to invest in the city of Austin and they want to invest in our people, and want to give more economic opportunity. And so I think that there's a policy distinction of the different levels of government, but then also truly having an understanding of how all the different jurisdictions work. I mean, this district goes all the way out to people who have Manor addresses are part of District 1 as well. And so I understand what it's like to live right east of 35, and I understand what it's like to be a homeowner. I also understand what it's like to be a renter, which I currently am in District 1. And so I've understood the nuances. I've also seen it grow. I've also seen people get pushed out. And so I think that there's just differences in how all of us have probably manifested our work in different things like that over the last couple of decades. I think everybody's been around for at least a couple of decades. A couple of people were born here and raised here. And so, and then I just think I have a network here in Austin of people that have been not traditionally a part of the political system, that feel a part of it, not just because of me, but because of the work that we've all done together. And that's on gun violence prevention, but other parts of the community. And I think that I also, the last thing that I would just say, this is not an education thing, but more of I think that we also need someone on city council who, on different legal issues, I do think that it's important to make sure that we have we have a couple lawyers who are on city council right now, but I do think that it's important when it comes to how people may push back on us on all levels of government. We have the state pushing back, they're doing different things with whether it's ICE or different issues like that, and what we can and cannot do as a city. But I think there's also going to need to be somebody like myself who is able to maybe even push back on the other members of council, on what the rights are of the people in this district, and also how we can move forward as a community.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Again, so you've listed off your resume, which is remarkable, absolutely, and you have experience in these, you have a different experience than the other people running against you, for city council. Do you feel like this is a step down from what you've already done, and how are you letting District 1 voters know this is where you actually want to be if and it's not just a stepping stone?
Yeah. I'm absolutely running because I want to help my community. I wouldn't ever think that it was because of a step down from. Sorry. Just can you say that one more time? A step.
Do you feel like running for city council
Yeah.
would be like feel like a step down
Yeah.
from what you've already like your previous experience?
Mhm.
And how are you letting District 1 voters know this is actually where you want to be
Yeah.
and not just a stepping stone for what you could possibly do?
No, I mean I've always worked locally. I've always worked locally and nationally. So if you look back at the last 26 years, I worked in the federal government. I worked for a member of Congress, and I literally left in the middle of the night because I figured out that working at the federal government for a member of Congress was not for me. I found out what political campaigns were, and I was immediately drawn to it, and that was in 2005. And that's all I've done. So I wasn't a national Obama person. I worked here in East Austin, and whenever we were doing Obamacare, that was here in East Austin. Sorry. It was here in East Austin. So I've gotten, I think, some national experience, and also I've run a national organization. But that was by design because of the need and the gap that was in the field of gun violence prevention. And it was extremely important to me. But the only work that I've ever done, I would say for the most part, has been on the local level or to get resources for local work. In the last 5 years, I've spent being a rank and file lowest person in the office in the district attorney's office. So I am in there every single day. I'm mostly in court most days, and I am the number 4 in the court. I'm not number 1 in the court. And I take that job very seriously, and I love talking to residents. I love talking to survivors. I love talking to people to make sure that they can get diverted from the criminal legal system. And I think that this role as a city council person I think I'm perfectly qualified for it. And I think that because I have worked in all these different capacities, being able to bring all the different nuances that come with what is the federal government doing to us now? What is the state government? Is this not even legal, but like, can they do this? Has this worked in other places? I think I'm perfectly qualified for that and something that I really want to do. This is not an age disparity thing, but I am 46 years old. And so I would love to be in this position. And I've never tried to run for office before. And so this wasn't like I want to do something else and then city council. So I'm really proud of the work that I've done this far. I've been a candidate now for 7 weeks. And so it's been an exciting 7 weeks. But yeah, I mean, before I decided to run, I met with a whole lot of people. A lot of people talked to me about it, but they were from District 1. I did have people reach out to me, not from District 1. But their opinion meant something if I knew them. But what the opinion that meant the most to me was the people in District 1. And those are the people that I love, that I've worked with. They're my family. And so I'm excited about getting to work with them in a different capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
What union are you a member of?
Ask me.
ASME.
Yeah.
Is that for the city and county?
City and county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your position on Prop Q?
What was I didn't have I didn't have a position. I mean, or what did I publicly say, or what did I vote?
Did you support it?
For Prop Q?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just hypothetically, we're all voting in this election, in this race, and we're all undecided.
Okay.
Make your best spiel to us, your
Yeah.
best pitch.
Yeah. My best pitch. I'm asking for your vote. I know that I need to earn every single vote that I get in this election. And this is one of the most, we hear it all the time, but this is probably the most important election of our lifetime thus far. And for District 1, we need someone who is going to be able to fight for the needs of every single person who is in the district, and not just one part or one block, but also someone who truly understands the way that the city works, the way that the county works, the conflicts that are there, but also the opportunities that we have when we work together. I'm the only person in the race who's been first an organizer and on the local level who understand what it's like to work for working people and working class people that really need a leg up in this country. Been an advocate and been successful on every single level of government, but most importantly here in the city of Austin. I was a chair of the Gun Violence Task Force, which to this day, it was the first and only one that was in the entire state of Texas. I'm very proud of that, but mostly proud of that we've been able to build capacity for community-based organizations and public safety across all of Austin. And so I will fight for the people of District 1. I know there's a lot of other districts who get believe that they are the priority in city council. I know that District 1 is. And so I have the ability to not only get things done with other city council members and the mayor, but also be able to make sure that we are holding the line for the entire district as well. And so I'm humbly asking for everyone's vote, but I know that I can do this job. I know that I can do it well, and I'd be honored to be your city council person.
Just one quick follow-up that
Yes.
the students have asked of the candidates. What's your position on how you address the displacement crises?
My position on
Displacement crises.
yeah. I mean, is there specific, just generally?
Well, I mean, District 1 has a huge
Yeah.
displacement crisis.
Yeah.
And we see it in the demographic data.
Yeah.
The city of how many African Americans and Latinos have been pushed out
Yeah.
of the city because they cannot afford, they have to drive until they qualify for housing or for
Yeah.
rent.
Yeah.
So that's the displacement crisis.
Yeah.
We see it now in the school district in the enrollment figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the biggest factor in why enrollment is declining, because it was mostly African Americans and Latinos whose kids
Yeah.
went to AISD schools. So what would you do about the displacement crises?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things because there's obviously housing, but there's also education. There's different parts of I think the displacement crisis that's happening, and it's not like 1928 happened and then everything has been fine since then, or this is just something that happened in the last couple of years. I think it's been pervasive, and I think many times it's actually been intentional. Well, not just been intentional; it's been intentional for our people. So I think there's a couple of different ways. I think we need bold ideas, and I think we need to have incentives for people to be able to stay where they are. I know a lot of people who that I've talked to over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, who specifically have said, I didn't want to move to Pflugerville. I also wanted a job that was actually right next to where I lived off of East 12th or whatever the case may be. And so I do think that there's a lot of funding initiatives that the city can do, as the city council can do, to make sure that people can actually stay in their homes, but also educate people about what that actually means. I hear people talk about all the time, if all the Black people or brown people in District 1 just knew about homestead exemptions, then everyone would be fine. That's not true. Lots of people know about homestead exemptions, and that isn't actually going to solve the problem, because it's not just about property taxes. It's not just about whether or not you can pay for that. So I do think there's a massive educational campaign that needs to happen that is not just focused on one part of the displacement, but also really having the conversation, but also holding people accountable that are causing this crisis. And I think that we can't shy away from it anymore, that there are, whether it's certain people in development, different things like that, that may be helping to facilitate what this displacement looks like. And so I think that there's been some people have ignored that for a while, but I do think that there needs to be a conversation about that. There needs to be both funding, not just incentives. So not just like, if you do this, then you can stay in your home, but there needs to be actually funding for people who want to not only stay in their homes, but expand on where they are. A lot of people that I've talked to said, I don't just want to be able to stay in my home. I don't just want my property taxes to be lower. I want to be able to have that house over there for my grandkid, or I want to be able to my husband wants to buy, whatever the case may be. So we're talking about housing opportunity, an opportunity that actually comes with resources that are not just tied to, you must do this for this city, or you have to qualify in this way. We've lost on all of that. That would assume that everyone is starting from equal footing, when we aren't starting from equal footing at all in the city. So I think there needs to be funding and support for people who want to remain where they are, but also that we need to make sure that we are really educating people on what they've done in West Austin, right? Of ways that we can figure out. Some people want to be innovative with what their homes look like, but also some people want to be able to work where they live, and different things like that. I've heard that actually a lot lately, is there's a lot of people who work from home and they want to have different types, not even a zoning question. It's I just want to be able to have I want to be able to have resources to be able to have an office in my house that I currently live in, or my apartment that I currently live in. I cannot afford it. I know this person who is in West Austin, they're able to do that. So I just think that there needs to be a lot of funding, but then also education on what opportunities are actually available, and making sure that that is fundamental, not just whenever there's a budget crisis, and not just when there's a bond election, that we're actually having those conversations and bringing it into the city as well.
I know that we're out of time, but Kiara, you have had the questions about rent and apartments and affordability. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I would say because I was talking earlier about how affordable housing here in Austin is not really affordable because I am currently on my apartment hunt because I am supposed to graduate in a couple of weeks, and there are a lot of places that say that they're affordable, but their median rate is at like 50 to 60%, which is around like $56,000 to $60,000 a year.
But they are
And
fine.
just due
Yeah.
to the fact that the career field right now is like really, really bad because a lot of us are, trying to search for jobs or we're going to be post graduation and then still trying to figure it out. A lot of people can't really afford it, or don't make $56,000
Yeah.
a year. Like I myself, like make less than $30,000
Yeah.
a year, so I can only qualify for something that's 30%.
Mhm.
So I would basically say like, how would you help assist with that? Whether it's the job hunt for students like post graduation or just people looking for jobs regardless, and how would you up the ante on actually having or just current complexes or new complexes so where they can add a 30% median or 40% median for students to actually have somewhere to live, especially if they do plan on staying in Austin.
I think that's great. I was here last week. I think it was last week or the week before, and I don't think anybody lives around. Nobody can afford to be here in apartments or anything like that. And so on the jobs, I think creating jobs. I think I mentioned this earlier, but creating good jobs. Not everybody wants to work for the city, but like that's government in Austin is like one of the biggest places where people work because there's really not other places for people to work when they're coming out of school. And so I think creating different jobs, whether that's entrepreneur tracks, I keep mentioning like Baltimore, but New York City, Chicago, and other cities that don't have the exact same population size as us, but they've had the exact same challenges as us with a lot of the housing crisis. They've been able to create a lot of different jobs and they've expanded the job market because right now a lot of people are saying, well, we just need the exact same jobs or we need more capacity at this place, but then they can't hire people. People aren't actually enrolling or they aren't hiring for the specific jobs. So I think expanding what job opportunities actually exist in East Austin for people who especially want to stay here. And then I think for on the apartment complexes, I don't know if anyone saw the article. I think it was Urban Institute put out one that said that there was about just big headline about how the affordability crisis basically has been solved in Austin and how the apartments are right now are just so cheap in Austin, and basically everybody should move here because we have the cheapest apartments ever. And I just asked my friend who works at the Urban Institute, like, did you talk to people in East Austin? Because that's the furthest thing from the truth. And I think that we have to go back to they're basically talking about people who are not a lot of people who are not living where we are. And so I do think that we need to go back to I don't want to say completely go back to the drawing board, but we have to figure out getting more, not only just apartment complexes, but duplexes, different things like that are affordable for people, but actually ones that people people actually want to live in, because some of the ones people don't actually want to live in, and they're living there because it's quote unquote affordable, but it's not actually what they want. And so I think figuring out having community discussion, but again, like I said earlier, we can't have these community discussions for years. Like this is happening right now, and so there should be job fairs. There should be different opportunities for students at HT. The same way that there is at different universities that are in Austin. So I think making sure that there are different employers that are that the city helps to make sure that they are actually coming to HT with jobs, not just with like theoretically there's an opportunity, but there actually is opportunities, and we are hiring people directly out of college. Or out there, we're hiring people that are in their last year or senior year of college as well. So I think figuring. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
We are
sorry.
out
Gotta
of
go.
time.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Before you leave, give us the two contacts for you.
So do I need to give you like cell phone numbers or just people's names?
Yeah,
Okay.
names and numbers.
Okay.
Names and numbers are good. Thank you.
Of course. We can, if you want to just text it to me and I can give it to the students, that'd be great. And Amber, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. We can see that these are great students here that, and they had a lot of good questions and questions that